Greetings! I wanted to make a small introduction to talk about the purpose of this video and to share some ideas that will hopefully help you decide on how to make your own crib design. If you wish to skip it, there should be a marker to the design part if I manage to make one. I live in a small apartment, so I have no proper workshop space. Mainly, I use a small foldable table for small things and a sturdy coffee table for larger projects like this one. I have a child, so I strictly opted not to own any power tools, as they represent a greater hazard than regular tools, which they can easily store where no child can reach, and if used with adult supervision, pose little risk should an accident occur. I've been enjoying woodworking for several years, and so far there have been no accidents, mainly because I have a few rules that I will share with you for safety reasons. Use the required protective equipment. Treat a sharp tool with the respect it deserves. If you're tired, stop. Always ensure proper ventilation. Use a tool as it is intended. Tips in general. Measure twice, cut once. Mistakes will happen. Learning how to deal with them is also a skill. Be creative. Power tools offer you speed, hand tools offer you skill. For each task, see what you value most, your time or skill, and choose accordingly. Depending on your needs, you may want to do things differently, as your bed may be different to mine in shape and/or height. The exact measurements I'll use are not critical, as everything is adapted to the size of wood I have available, which can vary to yours. One of the goals of this video is to show you that even with limited space and limited tools, it is possible to enjoy the wonderful and addictive hobby of woodworking. So let's start with the design. The requirements I had was that the crib had to obviously be safe, sturdy, and easy to assemble and disassemble. I also wanted to maximize the use of wood, so most of the parts share the same piece of lumber. For instance, the top rail is the same as the legs and the L brackets that will hold legs in place. This is the part where the mattress will be held, which is slightly larger to accommodate for the rails, which consist of 2 each side with 8 bars, and then 1 at the back with 11 bars. This L bracket will be glued to the base and is what's going to be holding the legs in place. It consists of 2 parts that I'm going to join them together with a sort of half lap joint for extra strength, and then they will have a hole where the bolt will pass through to hold the legs in place. Each color now represents a different part of the build, so you can see all the individual parts. The legs will consist of just a piece of wood, it's nothing special. At the bottom, I'm going to use a leveling screw to be able to raise the crib up or down so it can be further or closer to the top of the mattress. The front legs should be able to slide back and forth, so I can adjust how close the crib will be to the bed itself. Except from the base to the L brackets, everything will be held together by bolts and nuts, and the rails will have 2 bolts coming from the side as this, then 2 other for the back and the same for the other side. Both side rails are going to be held to the back rail by 2 bolts from each side. I will be using 4 wood threaded inserts on each end of the back rail to join them like this. Each leg will be held in place by a bolt and a nut that will go all the way from the side of the L bracket through the leg. Now I'll show you the measurements from the design, which keep in mind that might be different for what you need. The mattress is 50 by 80 centimeters. If we add both rails from the side, it should add up to 88 centimeters, and from the back 54 centimeters. The bars are going to be 1 meter divided by 3, so around 33 centimeters, minus what is going to be inserted on each rail. The L bracket should be between 10 and 12 centimeters, and the legs around 30. My bed has a frame with a space between the mattress and the frame, and that is where the front legs will be. That will ensure that the crib one never slides backwards, and also is going to ensure that it stays tightly pressed against the mattress. And this is how it should look with the mattress. My wife wanted the crib mattress slightly lower than our bed mattress, so the baby will not roll into our mattress. The leveling screws at the bottom of the legs should allow for bringing the crib up or down as needed. And this is finally how it should look next to our bed. And that was the easy part. Now it's time to build the thing. First I will start with the base for the mattress. So now I'm measuring around 88 centimeters, and then I'm going to cut it to length. By the way, the wood is 120 by 60. Here I am using a block plane to smooth and straighten the cut. Initially I wanted to get 15 millimeters thick wood, but by mistake I got 10 millimeters thick wood. So I'm going to use the scrap wood to reinforce the base for the mattress. I'm going to divide it in 3 pieces, and they're going to go on each side where the bars are going to be screwed to the base for the mattress. Next, I'm going to cut the remaining part of the mattress to length, which should be around 54 centimeters. Next, it's time to cut the rails for both the bottom and the top part for the bars. I left the rails a bit longer just to have a bit of a margin to cut it flush later and make sure it's all flush. As you can see, the wood is not perfect, so I will address that later with the hand plane. A few of the pieces I cut had a few nuts that were protruding, so I planed them flush and made sure they were straight, with no twist and square. And so I did the same for all 6 rails. Next, it was time to make the holes for the bolts that will be joining all the rails together, so I put them in their position and then made sure they were square. Here you can see how the bolt is going to be inside the rails. I'm using M6 bolts, 6 centimeters long. Next, I'm going to glue all the pieces I cut before to make the base for the mattress a bit stronger. All these sides are where the holes are going to be drilled to fasten the rails to the base for the mattress. After letting the glue dry, I cut the excess wood from the base. I noticed that the base was flexing a bit too much for my liking, so I decided to reinforce also the front. This is the before and after. Next I marked where all the bars were going to be drilled and also the holes for the bolts to pass through. I didn't want the bolt's head to protrude from the rails, so I used an auger bit to create a recess. After finishing the remaining holes, I started to cut the bars to length. Even though I precisely marked the length of 32 centimeters, there was a discrepancy between the rods, so I ended up with some shorter bars. So I picked the shortest bar and cut the remaining 26 bars to length. Much better. Then I sanded both ends of each bar to help it ease in the holes in the rails. Next, I planed or cut any wood to make it flush. Next was time to drill the holes for the bars, which I wanted to be around 1 centimeter in, so I counted how many turns of the auger bit should accomplish this and repeat the steps for every hole. I took the remaining of the bars that I cut previously and I screwed a small screw in the center to help me mark where the holes were going to be for the top part of the rails. With all the holes marked, then it was time to drill the holes for the top part. After cutting all the holes, I used a 4mm chisel, which is the smallest one I have, to clean up all the holes and make sure there were no remaining wood fibers in. I apologize that my hand is blocking the view. What I'm trying to do here is to be very careful and not to damage the edge of the hole. Before gluing the bars, I took the opportunity to create a chamfer in the back of the crib, which otherwise would have been very difficult to access. Before gluing the bars, I made sure everything fit according to plan, and once I was convinced, then I went for it. After repeating the same steps for the remaining rails, it was time to make the L bracket that will hold the legs in place. the same manner I cut and hand plane the rails, I proceed to do so with the legs. I wanted to shape them a little bit to be a little more attractive, so I marked a few centimeters from the top, and then I wanted to make a small chamfer on each side. It was time to drill a hole for the leveling screw. Next, I clamped the legs in place and drilled a hole through the L bracket and the leg. The front legs were a bit trickier. First, I clamped them in the furthest back position, and then I put them in the front and drill a hole, and then I had to remove all the wood in between both holes. And that was it. Next, I sanded the whole crib with 80 grit paper, 120 and 240, and made sure everything was nice and flush and ready to be painted. First, I used one coat of shellac as a wood sealer, and after that I gave 3 to 5 coats of white paint that is child safe. let the paint dry for several weeks, and after that it was time to see if all still fit together nicely. That is it. The code is finished. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned something, and I wish you all the best.